CXO Community. CXO Community.
So it's a great honor to be here in Buenos Aires today. As Marcelo said, it's my first visit here to the country, and I'm thrilled to be here. I have to apologize for speaking in English today. My Spanish is not as strong as I'd like it to be. And there's one thing that I don't know if I quite understand. It's the Soul Sister music playing as we introduce. I thought these were all of our brothers that we were introducing, but I'm sure someone will explain that to me later. So look, this morning I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the conversations that I know are probably on your mind. In fact, in my role, as Marcelo said, I have the honor of leading the Symantec sales team across all of the United States and Canada and all of Latin America. And I spend a lot of my time talking with customers, folks like you. And when I do that, I hear themes, very consistent themes, over and over and over again. And one theme that is loud and clear is this whole idea of change. This whole idea that we, in the world of IT, need to change the way we do things. And there are things pressuring us, business pressures, forcing us to look differently, think differently at how we do what we do. Now, those conversations that I have with IT executives are echoed by important themes that industry analysts like Gartner reinforce. And on the minds of IT executives, CIOs, CISOs, over and over again is this whole concept of what kind of opportunity, what kind of challenge does cloud computing present? Software as a service, moving to hosted solutions. What kind of opportunities, what kind of challenges does that present? The whole idea of virtualization, the opportunity to make better use of the assets that we have, virtualizing servers and storage and endpoints, and certainly the whole concept of mobility and the pressures that's putting on all of us. Because every day I'm sure you feel the same things that we feel, and that is that your employees, your people, have new devices every day that they want to bring into your environment. And they want to put corporate data on those devices. Whether it's a BlackBerry or an iPad or whatever tablet or smart device it might be, that's putting pressure on you. And it's creating more and more information. And so we're challenged. We're challenged to deal with the information. We're challenged to deal with typical business issues like attracting new customers, retaining customers, driving productivity improvements and profitability. All of those things I'm sure sound very familiar to you. We hear these things all the time from our customers. And so what we've had to do over the course of many years is rethink our approach to helping you with all of these challenges. And that's what this Vision event is all about. Really making sure that you have the ability to rethink these challenges. Now, first, one of the bigger challenges that all of us have, it's not a new challenge, but it's becoming so much more pronounced, is this whole idea of information explosion. It's massive. The amount of information growth over the last year is massive. In fact, we saw information grow by 62% year over year. Today, in the world, there are over 800,000 petabytes of data. 800,000 petabytes. Now that's a lot of information. It's a big number, and that means there's a big challenge for all of us. Now where's that data coming from? Why is data growing so rapidly? Simply said, it's unstructured data that's driving that more than anything. It's growing so rapidly, and that growth is not in your databases necessarily. It's that unstructured data that's just exploding. And so you've got to think about, how do you store that unstructured information? How do you back it up? How do you recover it? When you need to get to that information, how do you find the most important information? How do you track what's important and what's not? The next big theme that I hear from customers, and you see it in the press every day, is this whole idea of the threat landscape. The threat landscape has changed. And it's changed more rapidly recently than ever before, because we're seeing attacks that are much more targeted. Threats that are much more toxic. Threats that are much more lethal than ever before. They're targeted at individuals, personal information of individuals. They're targeted at corporations, intellectual property. Your crown jewels, the most important assets that you have, are being targeted by malicious people outside in the world. They're targeting governments and businesses alike. So many examples every day. I mean, of course, last year everyone was familiar with this whole idea of WikiLeaks. What was so important there was this recognition that insiders, inside your own business, inside your own organization, if given access to information, they can, if they choose to, do substantial harm. Sharing of information with the wrong people at the wrong time can hurt your brand, your competitive advantage, your position in the marketplace. All of those situations are things that we need to help protect against. The attacks are front page news, and we do not want to be on the front page like Sony when their whole PlayStation environment was affected. But every morning there's a new attack. And one of the things that we're seeing is those new attacks, when I say toxic, I mean they are damaging and they are very hard to recover from. You think about the impacts on critical infrastructure that we're beginning to see. An example of that, a stunning example, is what Stuxnet represented. And you may or may not know of Stuxnet, but the thing that's important to understand is how sophisticated these attacks have become. Sophisticated attacks that are large in size and very difficult to detect. Stuxnet, frankly, was 10 times the size as far as pieces of malware go than what we saw typically. Stuxnet was designed very specifically to infect uranium enrichment facilities in Iran, designed to do physical harm, using cyber threat to do physical harm. It was clear that this kind of malware presented a whole new set of dangers that we need to protect against. And it's not just the fact that this uranium enrichment facility in Iran was the target, it's the possibility of what's next. It's the possibility of Stuxnet 2.0 being out there in the wild, being developed today. The toolkits that are available because of these things that are out there that are so sophisticated, that take advantage of zero-day threats, that take advantage of multiple forms of replication, that pervasively move throughout the world and affect not just a targeted organization, but spread so rapidly that even the desired point of inflection becomes minor in the grand scheme of things, where we saw power plants, water filtration facilities, all sorts of industrial control system affected all over the world because this malware was even better than the authors intended it to be. And those are the kinds of things that we need to think about. We need to think about how do we protect ourselves against those kinds of threats. Because these threats have moved from not just stealing information, they've moved from looking at ways to do physical harm, to actually destroy. And so we need to rethink how we address those kinds of issues. Now, mobility, again, as I mentioned, it's another issue that every one of us is having to deal with. Today, in the world, there are more mobile devices being sold than PCs. In fact, the first week that the iPad 2 was put on the market, there were 1 million iPad 2s sold. And you know where those devices are ending up? On your networks. Whether you want them there or not, they are on your networks. And executives are coming to you, I'm sure, and saying, support this device. I want to put my corporate information on this device. I want to put my most critical information on this device. And so we, as IT professionals, need to deal with this challenge. Now, if that's not happened to you yet, I guarantee you that it will. But those devices are going to continue to grow in a very, very rapid rate. The proliferation of devices into our organizations is going to grow very, very quickly. So currently there's only about 4 million mobile-only internet users across Latin America. It's a big number, 4 million mobile-only internet users in Latin America. By 2015, that number will grow to 71 million mobile-only internet users across Latin America. So that's 71 million people that will move completely to a mobile device to access the internet. And we need to be prepared to deal with that growth and that challenge in terms of managing that amount of data. And what does that amount of data correlate to? As you look at those 71 million users, it correlates to a 4,000% growth rate in data. In fact, what you'll see is up to 70% of mobile device usage will be specifically dedicated to accessing data, not voice, data, using BlackBerries and iPhones and other smart devices like tablets, using specifically to access data. And so we've got to think about how we protect not only that information, but how do we protect those devices. Another major trend that we're all dealing with is this whole concept of virtualization. The trend around virtualization is very specific, and it's because there's business benefit to all of us. There's a great opportunity for us to make better use of the IT assets that we have by virtualizing, taking advantage of the scale and efficiency that comes from virtualizing our environments. Not just our servers, virtualizing our storage and our endpoints, and sometimes our applications as well. Now, Gartner has said very clearly that over 70% of all servers will be virtualized. They've also said that the cost of managing storage in a virtualized environment is going to go up somewhere between 200 and 800%. And so we have to be prepared to do things differently to control and manage those costs, to actually drive our management costs down, not allow them to come up. So we need to think about, how do we manage in that environment? How do we manage in a hybrid environment where part of our world is virtualized and part is not? How do we provision storage? How do we make sure my environment is protected and available just as it is today in a traditional physical environment? How do I recover in a virtual environment when I've got a problem? All very important questions that we've got to answer. So within the next year or so, we'll move to really the next third of application virtualization. Today, most of the virtualization that's gone on in the world is test and development in simpler environments. But now we're seeing more and more companies hungry to, anxious to, implement virtualization across their most mission-critical applications. And so we've got to think about, how do we do that? And we're thinking about the challenges that come from that. And so far, we're seeing great opportunities to help customers take full advantage of that virtualization trend. And I'll talk a little bit more about what Symantec is doing specifically in just a bit. Last but not least, is this whole opportunity presented by the cloud. Really the next generation of outsourcing. This whole idea of how do we deliver service to our users, to our customers, and to our partners in the most efficient way. You can call it SaaS, software as a service, you can call it the cloud, you can call it hosted services, whatever name you want. It's really all about making sure that we look at what we're best at, our core competencies, our strengths, and leveraging others to handle those things that may not be our core competency. It's really, again, a whole nother generation of outsourcing. So I think those are the whole set of issues that we have. But customers are telling me every day that they worry about things like security in the cloud. They worry about information being available and applications being available in the cloud. They worry about the service levels that we're able to provide to customers when we embrace a cloud deliverable. All of those things are important, but I believe critically that done right, we can provide huge opportunity together with the whole next generation of distributed computing that the cloud represents. But there's challenges, because we need to be more agile. We need to deal with the complexity of the environments, and we need to make sure we mask that complexity with simplicity so that we can absolutely protect your environment. So ultimately, what we're challenged with, ultimately what we need to do is drive business results. Let's not forget that. As we solve our IT challenges, we're trying to drive value in the business environment. And so how can Symantec help? Let's talk a little bit about how our vision going forward applies so specifically to this set of challenges that we hear consistently from customers. Our vision really evolves around two things. People, that's you, that's your business partners, that's your customers, and information. People and information, your most critical assets. Your employees, your customers, your partners, and all the information you need to do your job and to conduct business. Really important that we think about this information explosion that I talked about. How do we categorize information? Figure out what really matters. So I talk to chief information officers all over the world, and one of the biggest things that they talk to me about is knowing what information really matters. Because as you all know, not all information is created equally. How do I determine, how do I understand my most critical 1% of my information? The crown jewels of my business, the crown jewels of my organization. How do I identify that? Or the 5% of the information, or the 20% of the information that I need to keep confidential. How do I discover, how do I identify that information? We've got to be able to categorize that information. And we've got to take an information-centric approach to dealing with that complexity. That's important. Information-centric approach. Not a device-centric approach, not a network-centric approach, but an information-centric approach. That's one of the key elements to giving you the flexibility you need to deal with all these challenges. So we need to think about it in this way. We've got to manage the infrastructure, protect the infrastructure, secure the infrastructure. Certainly those are the basics. But to continue to keep focus on the intelligence that we need to categorize that information. Who owns the data? Data ownership is a critical aspect. Data governance is a critical aspect. Being able to report on and ensure policies are adhered to. We need to have that information-centric view around not only the data that sits in structured environments, but unstructured environments. We need to think about all the infrastructure and all the different layers of that, so we've got the right level of intelligence, the right level of governance. And we need to think about the way we deal with this whole changing landscape of threats. Because frankly, we've got to rethink our approach. We cannot do the same things that we've done year over year. In fact, signature-based approaches alone are no longer good enough. We cannot always identify the bad things in time to protect ourselves from that. And so one of the things that Symantec is doing is move to a new technique. In addition to all the other things that we've done before, another layer of protection called reputation-based security. Critically important, because it's about not just the threats that we know, but dealing with the threats that we cannot identify in time. And so that's where the Symantec Global Intelligence Network and all the information we can glean around the world helps protect you before you even know you need to be protected. That's what reputation-based security is all about. It's about understanding the applications that are good, the files that are good, the information that is good in the world, and differentiating that from the things that we don't know if they are good or not. And so that ability to identify applications, think about this, the world of app stores, right, from Apple. There's over 300,000 apps available for iOS today. There's hundreds of thousands of applications available for Android. We need to be thinking about what those applications might do in terms of presenting threats to us. And so identifying which are good, which are bad, and which we don't know about is a big aspect of reputation-based security, and giving you the ability to disallow, to deny applications or files to run in your environment if we don't know whether they're good or bad. Critical way of us keeping pace with this proliferation of threats, with this complexity of threats. We've got to leverage all of the assets that we have. We have information coming to us at Symantec from over 175 million endpoints across the world. We've identified over $2.5 billion active files that we're working with that help protect you. Identify the good, the bad, and those elements that are unknown. It's the key to knowing what to allow to run on your systems. Because let's be very clear, 75% of the attacks that are out there in the wild today target just 50 systems. They're not widespread threats. They're not a threat that everyone will see. They're very focused. They're very targeted. They're very toxic. And you have to be able to protect yourselves in a different way than we ever have before. Other piece of information, we've got to talk about mobility, right? Everybody's dealing with this growth, right? By 2014, we're going to see 10 billion smart devices connecting to the internet across the world. And we've got to be able to give people access to information anytime, anywhere, on any device. We can't be device dependent in how we do that. The device, frankly, will become irrelevant because the devices are going to change. Today, I use an iPad, I use a BlackBerry. Next year, I'll probably use different devices. We can't become dependent on, linked to that device that's out there. What matters is letting me use whatever technology I choose to access the most information, the most critical information I need to do my job. And we've got to empower our users to gain that information. People having access to information. Again, it's the core of the strategy that Symantec embraces. So virtualization, right? This is what we have to think about. This first third of virtualization of servers and applications, that was easy, frankly. Big benefit, great financial case for doing that. This next third is hard. And so to be able to think about taking mission-critical, business-critical applications and moving them into virtualized environments, we need to think differently about high availability. We need to partner differently in the world. And that's why Symantec, in partnership with VMware, has developed something called Application HA. Symantec's Application HA enables you to get the full leverage that you've gotten from VMware and other providers today in a virtualized environment to get that for your mission-critical applications, to know inside your most mission-critical applications what's going on, not just within that server frame, but within the application itself, to give you the level of visibility, granularity, and high availability that we've provided for many, many, many years with things like Veritas Cluster Server and our journal file system and those sorts of technologies that we've provided. And so we're shipping that today. And it's making this next third of virtualization possible. And you need to have those kinds of partnerships and those different ways of thinking to make the possible happen today. So the other challenge is the cloud. Now, I think it's important to consider the cloud in two different ways. First, thinking about what we do for the cloud. That means, how do we help people build solutions up in cloud environments? Building up your cloud environment, whether it's a private cloud environment or a public cloud environment, we need to think about what we do for your cloud to make it secure, so that it's available, so that it's easily managed and protected. We've got to address those challenges for you. How do you back up and recover within the cloud? How do you build out that infrastructure? Very, very critical concept, what we do for the cloud. And a long list of solutions that Symantec has provided for years that fit perfectly into your opportunities to build out your cloud infrastructure. The second piece is to think about what we do from the cloud. And that's the services that we, Symantec, can deliver to you from our cloud. So backup from the cloud, email security from the cloud, archiving, high availability, all kinds of different solutions that we provide today, and we will continue to expand our portfolio from the cloud to give you choice. And it's not that we will move away from this whole idea of providing on-premise software. We'll give you freedom of choice to deliver the service in the way that's best for you. Again, to look at your core competencies, to understand what's the best mix of on-premise, in the cloud, hybrid solutions that meet your business needs. So we've got to think about things in a different way. We've got to think about this in an information-centric way. We've got to think about simplifying all that we do. Simplifying helps us move faster. Simplifying helps us meet business needs more expeditiously, more completely. And the more we can simplify, the faster we can go, the bigger business differentiation that we can deliver together. So that's what we're doing across our entire portfolio. And Symantec is unique, no doubt, because we've got solutions that work from your data center all the way out into your endpoint. The opportunity to leverage all the insight that we glean across our global intelligence network is an advantage for you. The opportunity to leverage the full breadth of our solutions together is a unique and competitive advantage for you. And so it's important that we work together to rethink your environment. And that again is what today is all about. This vision event here today is about giving you the detailed answers you need to help you rethink your approach to the challenges that you have today, to look at new solutions in different ways to deliver value to your organization and differentiation competitively. So I've enjoyed spending some time with you today. I know you're going to see a lot of new solutions, but understand, we are invested in your success. Our success is predicated on helping you do the things that you need to do to help you deal with these big challenges, these big changes that are out there. From mobility to virtualization to the cloud to all these new threats and to this explosive growth of information. We're here to help. And I will tell you that I am extremely confident that we, Symantec, can make a difference for you. I'm extremely confident we can help make you much more agile, much more competitive in the marketplace. And we'll do that together in partnership. So thank you very much for having me in your wonderful city. Thank you very much for having me today.
CXO Community.